Who's most likely to have more than 5 kids?
Who will get married first?
Who's smarter?
Who's most likely to drop a silent but deadly?
Who would give all their money to charity?
Who's messier?
Who spends the most money?
Who's most likely to shave their head?
Who's funnier?
Who's better at makeup?
Who's most likely to fall down the stairs?
Who has better style?
Who's the best at TikTok?
Who stays up later?
Who's the loudest?
Who has the cuter room?
Who's crazier?
Who is the worst driver?
And who's the favorite?
Who's most likely to dad and daughter edition? Who is most likely to survive a shark attack?
Who's messier?
Who has the better style?
Who cries more?
Who has the worst attitude?
Who laughs the loudest?
Who's more likely to get married first?
Who's most likely to move out of state?
Who's the meanest?
Who eats more?
Who will have kids first?
Who's most likely to sneak out?
Who's more likely to give all their money to charity?
Who's most likely to marry a celebrity?
Who's most likely to always be the happiest?
Who's most likely to become a millionaire?
Who is most likely to jump out of an airplane?
Who will have more boyfriends in their lifetime?
Who's most likely to wreck a vehicle?
Who spends the most money? Who will have kids first? Who will get married first? Who has the better style? Who is meaner? Who is more dumb? Who would get arrested first? Who is most likely to kill somebody? Who is more basic? Who does better in school? Who is more messy? Who is most likely to drop out of school? Who is the worst driver? Who is most likely to get pregnant before they are married?
Who's the thickest? Who's most likely to get arrested? Who's the craziest? Who's the most popular? Who gets the most attention from other guys? Who has the best tasting guys? Who's the sensitive one? Who's the meanie? Who's the prettiest? Who's the best at advice? Who's the best dancer? Who's got the best style? Who's the smartest?
Who's the most likely to date a celebrity? Who's the most likely to do weird things in public?
Hilarious. I'm looking at that.
Who's the most likely to get away with murder? Who's the most likely to laugh at the worst time? Who's the most likely to date a woman? Who's the most likely to say something else?
Is it over?
Who's the most likely to be late to their own wedding?
Who is the meanest? Who is the loudest? Who is the baddest? Who is the most caring? Who is the sneakiest? Who's the cleanest? Who's the messiest? Who gets in trouble the most? Who has the worst attitude? Who's the funniest? Who eats the most? Who will be the last to leave the house after they are grown? Who will put us in a nursing home?
Who's the most clingy? Who's the dumbest? Who's most likely to end it? Who's the funniest? Who's the messiest? Who's most likely to cheat? Who's the most annoying? Who has a better style? Who is meaner? Who's most likely to get pregnant?
Who spends the most money? Who will have kids first? Who will get married first? Who has the better style? Who is meaner? Who spends the most money? Who will have kids first? Who will get married first? Who has the better style? Who is meaner? Who is more dumb? Who would get arrested first? Who is most likely to kill somebody? Who is more basic? Who does better in school? Who is more messy? Who is most likely to drop out of school? Who is the worst driver? Who is most likely to get pregnant before they are married?
The most whoopings growing up? Who got in the least amount of trouble growing up? Who is the rebel child? Who made better grades in school? Who talked back more? Who is the funniest? Who is the most expensive child? Who is more financially responsible? Who goes out more? Who spends the most money on unnecessary things? Who will get married first? Who will have kids first? Who has the most style? Who has had the most boyfriends or girlfriends? Who is the meanest? Who is the loudest? Who is the sneakiest? Who is more caring? Who is the overdramatic one? Who is the overprotective one? Who will be the last to leave the house after they're grown? Who will put y'all in a nursing home?
All right, who's the most likely to be a trophy wife? Who's the most likely to total their car first? Who should be required to wear a helmet to basic daily activities? Who's most likely to become an alcoholic? Who would be the first to get pregnant? Who would develop an addiction to painkillers? Who would get snatched first? Who's most likely to end up in a trailer park? That's it.
Who's a hopeless romantic? Oh, who's most likely to get arrested? Who's most likely to cheat on someone?
Oh, I got hair on my
Who's most
shirt.
likely to get pregnant first or get someone pregnant? Who's most likely to get away with murder? Who's most likely to flirt in public? Who's most likely to hook up with someone at a party?
I knew that was coming.
Who's the biggest hoe?
Yes.
Who's most likely to date two people at once?
Oh,
Who's most likely to get played?
Who always has to be a heartbreaker? Who is most likely to be a drama queen? Who is most likely to get married first? Who is most likely to die of something stupid? Who is most likely to embarrass themselves in front of their crush? Who is most likely to get arrested? Who is most likely to always be late? Who is most likely to laugh at the wrong moment? Who is most likely to be an alcoholic? Who is most likely to be a perfectionist? Who is most likely to just live in the moment?
Who's the meanest? Most likely to get into a fight? Most emotional? Most likely to do weird things in public? Most likely to get pregnant after a one-night stand? Who catches feelings quickest? Most likely to break someone's heart? Who's the funniest? Who's the alcoholic? Most likely to get cheated on? Most likely to catch an STD?
Most likely to become a porn star.
Best friends check.
Who's crazier? Most likely to get arrested. Gets too drunk and pees their pants.
You're such a piece of shit.
Who's more annoying?
This
What?
motherfucker.
Who's more what?
Annoying.
Oh.
Who's funnier? Most likely to spend money on something stupid. Who's the thickest? Most likely to get married first. Who smells better? Who gives off more crackhead energy?
Who spends the most money? Who will have kids first? Who will get married first? Who has the better style? Who is meaner? Who is more dumb? Who would get arrested first? Who is most likely to kill somebody? Who is more basic? Who does better in school? Who is more messy? Who is most likely to drop out of school? Who is the worst driver? Who is most likely to get pregnant before they are married?
Who's most likely to fart loudly in a crowded room? Who's most likely to cry while watching a sad movie? Most likely to have more than 5 children? Who's the smartest? Who would give all their money to charity? Most likely to kill someone? Who's first to die in a zombie apocalypse? Most likely to not take a shower for a week? Most likely to blow all their money in Las Vegas? Most likely to ask a stupid question? Most likely to throw a fit in a game of Monopoly? Most likely to shave their head? Most likely to forget your birthday? Biggest drama queen? Who's your favorite?
Who's the most likely to fall going up the stairs?
Really?
But yeah, otherwise it would be me.
Who's the most likely to get sick right before a big performance?
Bobby. Oh, definitely you, sis.
She said, let me throw everybody else.
Who's the most likely to forget the choreo?
Me sometimes.
Who's the most likely to do something embarrassing in front of their crush?
All of us.
Oh, y'all trying to get me out the way.
Who's the most likely to have 2 boyfriends at the same time?
Body count. Who has a bigger problem with liking boys if the name starts with J? Who has gotten with more people? Most likely to crash a car first? Who's funnier? Most likely to cheat on a boy? Who's the smarter one? Most likely to get a boy's name tatted on them? Most likely to become famous? First to fight a bitch?